May I have your attention? May I have your attention? May I have your attention?
Midnite Martini, thank you so much for joining me on the big reveal. Let's talk. How did you get started in burlesque?
Well, I danced. I actually figure skated first when I was very young, and then did dance to help my figure skating. Went to college for musical theater for a year, actually. They were very real, very high stress about the way that we looked. I already had struggled with body image, and that just pushed me over the edge to really start binging, purging, restricting, just go into a deep state of depression as well. And fortunately, I had the clarity after about a year to realize that's not a healthy environment for me. So I quit the program. I transferred to Boulder. For a year, I didn't dance. I studied psychology instead. And in Boulder, there was this lovely company, Frequent Flyers Aerial Dance, and I saw that they had an aerial dance festival coming up. I was like, what is this? Like the circus? This is so cool. I volunteered for them and got to take my first circus class and fell in love with it. And no offense to anyone in the circus, but it kind of felt like, oh, this is where all the misfits come together and they can just be themselves. Jazz dance was definitely like the thing that I really loved. The aerial dance company, Frequent Flyers, was more of a modern dance company. So I got more into modern dance through them as well. What's like a misfit version of dance? It was like, let me check on this burlesque thing. And there was a woman doing it in Denver, Vivian Vavoom, and I just contacted her. I was like, I would love to know what this burlesque thing is. This was back in the day when it was still pretty underground. Not many people knew about it. So she was like, come see a show. All right, I came to see a show. I talked to her afterwards. She's like, we got another show in a couple months. Want to be in it? It's like, all right, yeah, sure, let's do it. That does not usually happen today.
What was your view of burlesque? What was your interpretation of it? And has that shifted over time?
Yeah, that's, I think I saw just the glitz and the glamour of it. I knew that the neo-burlesque movement, I didn't know it was called neo-burlesque movement at the time, but I knew like the burlesque movement had something to do with like empowerment and accepting different bodies. And that's something I really discovered with this troupe in Denver and the performers in Denver. I think burlesque helped me, it helped me on my journey to love myself more, to find my self-worth. I tell my burlesque students or people I've taught in the past this too, I'm like, burlesque isn't the answer. It's not just all of a sudden going to make you self-confident, but it's going to force you to work with that piece of yourself over and over again. It's going to force you to look at that and to struggle with it. The community leader part just sort of fell into place that this family started to grow and we cultivated this community.
Did you notice anything with regards to when you start doing a festival and you start bringing in outside talent, what shifts happen in a community that was or was not insulated from that?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think anything can go wrong. I mean, knock on wood, but in the long term of bringing new perspectives in and trying to connect with more people in burlesque and in life, just getting out of your bubble. The feedback sessions we used to do, people could come with just an act and we would give them feedback, or they could come with an idea. And it was always my thing of, we have so many great creative minds. You can create a wonderful act on your own, but imagine if you got like 15 or 30 or whatever creative minds to work on this with you, how much more rich and fruitful it would be. So I have that perspective with everything.
You're very generous creatively and you're the way that you approach community and everything. Is there any connection to studying psychology with your approach and your empathy?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I actually think maybe even more so which, first of all, thank you. Thank you. I am very generous. I'm glad that you remembered to say that when I slipped you that 20. I was adopted when I was a baby, I think like 4 to 6 months old, and grew up in a very white suburban neighborhood in Colorado. But again, they're doing my own therapy and my own work and fleshing a lot of things out. I think I've just had I've always felt a lot of empathy and openness to those who maybe didn't feel like they had a voice, or those who were underrepresented, or those who were oppressed, or and being able to maybe see both sides. Back then, there wasn't as many resources, especially about international adoption, and how that could affect the child growing up, and things you could do or not do. So there's fear around my birth family coming back and like taking me back, or
your fear.
My adopted family's fear.
Your family, okay.
Yeah, and I understand. I think now, again, doing my work and doing, I understand that perspective. I get it.
Yeah.
But as a child, it came off, as like, oh, the birth family's the enemy. But then also, as an adoptee, having this yearning that felt kind of forbidden to like find out who my birth family was. So I don't know. I think I've always just grown up with that, being in between two different worlds or two different perspectives, and trying to see both sides and reconcile both sides and how that relates to me. Recently,
You did meet your birth parents, is that correct?
Yes, I did. I got into a reunion with them a few years ago. I was very lucky. This doesn't happen as quickly and as smoothly as it did for me, so I feel very grateful. I contacted the orphanage that I was with, or I was in when I was in a Cree as a baby. And luckily, because there's a lot of orphanages and adoption agencies who don't have accurate records, or they didn't keep their records, so I was really fortunate that they had my records. I went back for my birthday, which I thought would be very, I don't know. I'm from Colorado. It's a very woo-woo place too. So it's like the stars aligning all on my birthday to go back to where I was born. And met my birth mother. I do have a birth brother and an aunt, and then got to meet my birth father as well. My birth mother and birth father are divorced, but they came together. Every adoptee's path is different. But I do feel very strongly that every adoptee should have the right and the knowledge and the access to search their birth family and to find their birth family if they so desire. Growing up in a very white suburban neighborhood, white family, again, this was back when the knowledge wasn't there that we have now. So it was more common for people to be like, I don't even realize that you're Asian. Like, I don't even see your color. I don't even see your race, which now we know ends up doing more harm. It's like, okay, then you don't see me. I feel invisible. And I did. I was a very shy child. I never identified as Asian growing up. And in high school, it's almost like my friends and I, like something happened where we're like, oh shoot, oh, she's Asian. And then it became like a joke, like, oh, the Asian one. Yeah, starting to do burlesque and just working with myself and my body image. And that also came with, I thought beauty was to be blonde and blue-eyed. I remember that growing up, like, I so badly wanted to be blonde and blue-eyed, and that's what was beautiful. And then just trying to figure out who I was, or how I identify, or how I can present myself or believe in myself that I'm beautiful. And I would get some audience members who would come up to me who were Asian, and they would say, like, oh, it's so great to see an Asian woman up there. It's so wonderful to see someone who's Asian who's not playing a character. I don't really do like Asian themed routines. So I'm just sort of me up there, and like just seeing a strong Asian woman who's not like a stereotype, or it isn't being fetishized as being Asian. Just being Asian, I was like just to be Asian, isn't that an interesting thing? Like, way to go! You're brave enough to just be Asian on stage. And then I went to Japan last year as well. And the response I got there was very loving, and a lot of the community there. And I've met some of the Japanese burlesque community at BHOF as well, and them just being really inspired when I won Miss Exotic World, because finally there was someone who won who kind of looked like them. Yeah. And I didn't really realize, I realized it was a big deal and I was a performer of color and that was a big deal, but it just put it in a different perspective of like, no, this means something to people.
You won in 2014, Reign Queen of Burlesque. You win BHOF. BHOF is, you've won it. What led up to that?
I performed and competed, and then created routines. I like to blend my aerial, my circus work with burlesque. And you know, I will admit, I got wrapped up in the competition. I got wrapped up in the title a little bit, and just because I never thought it could happen, I was like, oh man, maybe it could happen. And, oh geez, now it's like, okay, maybe it could happen, because I hadn't won any sort of superlative anything.
At that point, you're like, I've invented a thing. Like, where do I go from here?
What can I do? What can I do for this? And I talked to Bazooka Joe and Ray Gunn and a lot of people, and was kind of sort of like, I'm not classic enough. Like, I need to get like the big gown or the big whatever. I need to get all the sparkles. I need to do a classic routine. I need to pick out the music. And Ray Gunn actually gave me some very good advice of, okay, so let's say you create a routine to win BHOF, and then you win with that routine. And that's the routine everyone knows you as, and that's a routine you're gonna have to travel around and do. And if it doesn't speak to you, if it doesn't really represent you as an artist, is that what you really want to win with? So I did, with the intention, create an aerial routine that tried to strip away a lot of the aerial, that tried to just use it as a little cherry on the top, or a little like extra something, but it wasn't the bulk of the routine. So I did have that intent going into creating the act I won with. But beyond that, it was it was a song that I loved, it wasn't classic at all. It was Jack White. My costume was very minimal. It wasn't like I had like a body cage and some gloves. Otherwise I was wrapped up in like my aerial fabrics. And I think that's probably what did it, is that I was able to be really present and really unapologetically like, this is my act. And to my surprise, that's what ended up winning the title. Looking back now, I kind of feel like in the woo-wee-woo big universe plan, I maybe won the title just so I could move on from being obsessed about winning the title. Like it didn't fulfill anything magical where all of a sudden your career is made, you're making all this money and you're doing all these things. Winning has brought me a lot of really amazing things. I think I did get more visibility. People knew me more. I was able to go overseas, especially, and people like knew that name where they probably wouldn't have before.
You have recently decided to take a hiatus from burlesque. So define what is your hiatus? What does that mean to you?
Well, I took all of this month off performing at all, which doesn't seem like much. I know. But to us people, that's a really big deal. I may do like an aerial gig here and there, but burlesque, I'm taking a break from. My plan is to do at least through the end of this year and then kind of reassess and see. But I also really believe that you have to create space in your life and in your schedule for new things to come in that need to come in.
Because you recently got your certification, is that correct?
Yes, I got Pilates certified. I also teach group fitness and group exercise, and so I've been getting more into the fitness industry and working with fitness, and feeling a more even radical change of going back to school and going for a master's in social work, so I can start focusing on counseling or public speaking. I mean, I don't really know what the end thing is, but something more to do with the adoptee community. I still love performing, and so that's really hard. And I think, again, as a performer, I identify as that. Again, like how do you identify? I realize since performing burlesque from when I was 20 until now and growing up in it, I really identify as a burlesque performer, and it's scary. I've been feeling a lot of fear, and because I just performed in New Orleans, and that was sort of my last performance in burlesque for a while, and I loved it, and I had such a good time. And I have that thing of like, oh no, I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to do this. No, I can't stop. And then I come here to do this, and I sit down and I read that whiteboard, and I'm like, all right, universe, okay.
That's it.
Yes, like, it's okay. Just have the trust that you can let go of something and know I can always come back to it.
Yeah.
Almost, in a weird kind of sappy way, I'm like, I'm hoping this actually makes my connections with the community deeper, because now I can connect with them and have the time to like go talk with them or go support them, or in these other ways where I don't have to worry about also performing. I can just be there and nourish these relationships.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of Midnite Martini's episode. Join us next week for part 2, where Midnite talks about her finger fan act.